So how do you feel about boundaries? It's a legitimate question. A lot of people come to me really struggling with this concept. They often feel guilty for setting boundaries, or they're not sure about even what a boundary is. They've heard the term, set the boundary, things like that, but that's really confusing for them because it's not something that's well taught in our society nowadays, right? They know that boundaries are really important to having healthy, constructive, supportive, and wonderful relationships, but why? And oftentimes they also know that they feel like their boundaries are being violated, but they can't quite pinpoint what the boundary is that's being violated. That's why I've created the Clarifying and Creating Your Boundaries free PDF. You can find out what your boundaries are, how to tune in to what the boundary needs to be, and how to effectively create and communicate your boundary so that way you stay in this place that respects you, respects the other person, but also gives you the confidence in your boundaries so that way you stop being gaslighted, disrespected, and unseen. Having your boundaries really clear gives you a voice and also helps the other person stay in accountability with themselves. So that's not a role that you have to take on anymore. So if you are ready to really have clear boundaries, to really understand what your role is in the boundary, and to give yourself some safety and some protection against people that might try to gaslight you or are just being disrespectful, go grab my Creating and Clarifying Your Boundary PDF at erinandersonthetraumacoach.com. And while you're there, let's schedule a call with me. Come have a chat with me so that way I can really help you master this particular skill, creating boundaries, clarifying the boundary, communicating that boundary, and so that way I can also help you have relationships that show up to support you, cherish you, and love you.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of The Other Side of the Struggle. Okay, so I am revisiting today a question that I get asked a lot, and I've actually put a couple of past episodes, I think the last one was maybe 2 years ago that I did, about how do I trust, okay? And here's the thing, again, content develops, my thoughts develop on certain subjects, and so I wanted to revisit this question again in this episode because if you have a relationship, you probably have a chance for some betrayal in there, even betrayal with self, okay? And one of the questions I get is how do I move past that betrayal? How do I trust this person again? And it even gets more critical when it's your spouse or your kids even, your really intimate close relationships that you have felt betrayed by, and now here you are, you're trying to move past that. I get that question a lot there, and here's the truth of the matter though. Betrayal, or I really should say trusting again, isn't on you, actually. Okay, 100%, I should say. I mean, there are obviously some things that I would definitely coach you to do, such as watch their words, their actions, and their energy, right? So somebody's betrayed you, and maybe they've betrayed you several times. And if you're in a marriage where your husband has struggled with pornography or some sort of an addiction, that's a consistent betrayal. And so I get this question a lot, how do I trust them again? My husband is wanting me to give them trust, but I just don't feel like I can give it. I've now even had that with business partners, right? Business partners who have broke the the agreements and the covenants and stuff that the two of them have set together to build this business together. And I get clients asking me, you know, in entrepreneurship, like, how do I trust my business partner again? How do I trust my kids again? How do I trust myself again? Right? These are all really key relationships. And one of the things that I say on a constant basis is watch their constants. Okay? Like, where are they actually constant? That is what you trust. Okay? And I'm going to talk to you today about how to voice that in a way that gives you power. Okay? As well. So let's first and foremost talk about the things that build trust. Like I said, we trust what is constant, what is constantly there. And people communicate, or what is constantly being communicated, I should say. And people communicate in words, actions, and energy. And this is also why boundaries are so important, is because when you have a really good talking and listening boundary, and if you don't know what those are, go check out my other podcast, Bold Hearts, Big Moves. Some of the very first episodes of that podcast are all about the different types of boundaries and what they mean, okay? But in there, if you have a really good listening and you have a really good talking boundary, you can kind of get a good feel for where people are at in their speaking, their actions, and their energy. But if they're going to say one thing, like, you know, a really good example here is, hey, I'm done with porn. I'm not going to look at it again. But yet their actions and their energy are saying something else. Like maybe he's still hiding his phone, or you just get that vibe from him that nothing's really changing. That is an inconstant. Okay? And if that is, quote unquote, that inconstant is constantly there, well, that's what we look at. And that's what we want to address. Say that you have a business partner that is not keeping up their end of the deal, like they're not doing their side of the work, and you are constantly having to do their work, and they're constantly getting paid for the work that you are doing, and they're not stepping up to the plate, right? Okay, I've had that scenario with a client before, I should say. And again, what we did is we just checked out what are the constants, right? The words were different than what the actions and the energy was. Her words were saying, hey, you know what? I'm going to get this done. I'm good for it. Thank you so much for all the work you did. Flattery, flattery, flattery. But then when the next month came around, she was all too willing to take that paycheck, and she didn't put the work in that month, right? And when my client was around this business partner, she could just get a vibe that she wasn't really interested in doing the work. She was interested in the paycheck, but not the work, right? And so that's an inconstant constant. Makes sense? And this is one of the things I want you to pay attention to, is where are the inconstants, where are the constants? Because if somebody is demanding that, oh, hey, it's good, 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 you can trust me, that's wonderful, but those are just words. We actually take a look to see that all the that the actions, the words, and the energy align, they match up. Okay? Let me give you an example of that. If, say, a husband who has, let's use the husband who's betrayed his wife several times through pornography, right? If he is someone that is worth trusting again, his actions, his words, his actions, and his energy are going to align. and they're going to stay aligned. They're going to show that constant work, right? So for an example, he's going to come and he's going to say, hey, I've been struggling really badly. I have been looking at pornography. I don't like what this is doing to you. I am going to hire me a coach, or I'm going to hire me a therapist until I get on top or get to the root cause of what is causing me to keep slipping up. I'm going to be honest with you. I am going to be transparent with you. If you want to see my phone, I'm going to give you my phone. When the wife asks him how he's done that day, he's going to be honest. You know what? I've really had a struggle today. I've slipped up today. I apologize. Now, today actually was a good day, right? And they're not going to try to hide the truth. And you can feel in them that they actually want to do better. And not only that, they actually take the actions, they do what they say they're going to do. So if the husband says he's going to go hire him a coach, he goes and hires the coach. If he says he's going to get into therapy, he goes and he makes the effort to get into therapy. He does not put any of that work on the wife because he realizes that her work is in healing herself, not him. He does not ask for trust from you. He does not demand trust from you. He realizes that that is on him. And so he takes it seriously. Now, when it comes to the business partnership, if that business partner was someone who was willing to actually get in and do the work, it's easy. They actually would do it, right? People do what they say they're going to do if they're trustworthy. They don't just expect you to trust them. And that's the long and short of it. So how do you know how to trust again? When do you know how to trust again? It is when their actions, their words, and their energy align, and they actually do what they say they're going to do. Now, here's where your work comes in, my wonderful listener. And I say this with so much love because and with experience as well, because one of the biggest things that I have realized when it came to healing my own relationships was that if I wanted to be able to be, if I wanted their honesty, if I wanted to be able to trust them again, I also needed to be consistent. I needed to be someone who was trustworthy, and I needed to be someone who got in and did what she said she was going to do. And let me be honest here again. You know, this is something that I'm working on again this year. Not necessarily in my relationships, like my business relationships or my personal relationships. I'm actually pretty good at doing what I say I'm going to do there. But when it came to myself, I realized I had some work to do. And this is key in creating trust, in creating honesty, and creating safety. Okay? Because if I can't count on myself at least to do what I say I'm going to do, then one, I tend to be more shotgunish. It's a word that comes to mind, and meaning that I make rash decisions. And that's not something that I want to do. I want to be able to really think about the situations I'm in and consider my options and make the best decision going forward. But if I don't trust myself to take action in those decisions, I won't make the best decisions. That's the truth of the matter. And you can actually look at people, think about people in your life that you're wondering if you can trust. Do they follow through with what they say they're going to do? Are you a faithful listener to the other side of the struggle? Have you loved the other side of the struggle for as long as you've been listening to it? Have you been waiting and begging for more episodes to come out? Well, good news. Come 2026, the very first part, the other side of the struggle is coming back better than ever, better than it's ever been, just for you listeners. So now you can heal your trauma in ways that you've never realized were possible before. So tune in, 2026, we're coming back. And how does that affect them? So trusting ourselves is really key also in being able to trust another person. If we do what we say we're going to do for ourselves, for the people in our lives, and for our businesses, for God, etc., if we do what we say we're going to do, it teaches us to be wise in our actions, because we really think about them. We're going to make sure that we actually follow through. And it teaches us to also be wise in our actions and in our decisions. So how do we communicate this to someone who is maybe demanding that you give them your trust, okay? Or when you feel like trust is broken, how do you communicate that? So let's go ahead and go through that for just a moment, okay? Number one, if you feel like your trust has been broken, let's talk about the inconsistencies. If somebody is demanding that you trust them, and those are their words, you get to ask them some questions. And some of the questions I would ask them is number one, you say that you want me to trust you, or that I can trust you. My experience has been different. What are you willing to do to earn my trust back? That's a key question. What are you willing to do to earn my trust back? And you get to hold them accountable to that. When the second time comes around and they're like, well, you should just trust me, you can say, yes, but I understand that you want me to trust you. But when we last had this conversation, you said that you were going to do this and this and this and this to earn my trust back, to take this seriously. Where are you on that journey? How are you doing with those things? Because this is what I see. These are the things that I'm seeing consistently come from you. And that constant is telling me not to trust you. A way that this might go, okay? Let's take the business partner for an example. And say she's coming to my client and she says, hey, you know what? I've got it this month. You can trust me. That's wonderful. And this is how the conversation would go. Oh, that's a wonderful thing. I'm glad you think that I can. However, I'm not so sure. I see you making promises that you're not keeping. Last week, you promised that you were going to upload this video. Or last week, you promised that you were going to reach out to these clients that never got reached out to, so I ended up having to do it. and I ended up having to do the books, or I ended up having to do your share of the work. And I've had to do that for several months now, while you've just enjoyed a benefit of a check. What I'm seeing and what I'm feeling is that you really are not taking this seriously. So what can I see from you? What can I expect from you this month that's going to tell me that, yes, I can trust you? And they're going to list out the things that they're going to do. And then you get to hold them accountable in the next conversation. You promised me that you were going to do this and this and this and this. How are you doing with those things? This is where being able to have good, but maybe even a little bit of a difficult conversation helps you with trust. Because if somebody is willing also to hear you in that difficult conversation, if they're willing to listen to how their actions, their words, and their energies have affected you, and they're willing to make adjustments, those are also constants. Those are people who will constantly show up that way. The last thing you want to check is check their results. The results are they're there because of what consistent action they have taken. And if you remember, I did a podcast in this podcast not too long. Well, it was a little while ago, but it's down there. If you scroll through the episodes, that talks about the 5-step thought process. And in there, I talk about how our circumstances lead to thoughts, our thoughts lead to feelings, our feelings lead to actions, and our actions lead to results. It's a consistent process. What are their results like? How are they with other relationships? How are they money-wise? How are they elsewhere? These are things you also want to check out if you are asking yourself if this person is actually trustworthy as well, because the result is something that is made through consistent action. Okay? So again, where is their consistency? How do they consistently show up for you? And if they are someone that is actually going to get in and do what they say they're going to do, that is somebody that, yes, you can trust. They might be a little bit messy. They might make mistakes along the way. Don't expect perfection as somebody is trying to get into growth and grow themselves out of their problem, because that's the only way we heal problems, is to grow ourselves out of it. Literally, we outgrow it. And if they're willing to outgrow it, and if they're willing to get in and do that work, it is a messy, messy business. Be patient with that process. But if they get lazy and they don't do the work and they don't grow and they just stay in that zone, that is also communication. And you get to call that out. You get to say, I have just noticed that you're just not very interested and you're not really serious about growing past this problem. I've noticed that you're more interested in staying stuck. And then we have to make some decisions ourselves at that point. You have to make decisions on whether or not this is a relationship that you're willing to keep around. And that's a hard thing, especially if you're in a marriage and you've got kids. Maybe some of you are moms who, quote unquote, aren't making an income. But by the way, guys, if you are in that state, you really do probably need to go check out Bold Hearts Big Moves, because you absolutely can make an income. But you have to make some decisions about what is best for you and who is best for you in those moments. Relationships cause us to grow. So when we get into relationships and then we find out that they are not actually going to work out for us, there is no shame there. Okay, I want you to know that. I say that lovingly because it's part of the messy bits. I look at the relationships in my life, even the relationship I have with myself, even the relationship I have with God. There's mess in a lot in pretty well every one of those relationships, because the mess is where we have the opportunity to grow. And we get to actually look and say, what can I trust? Who can I trust? Lastly, my loves, if the person you feel the most betrayed by is yourself, then here's what I would definitely invite you to do. Start keeping your word with yourself. If you say you're going to do something, go out and do it. If that seems terrifying to you, start small. It might be something like, I'm going to record that podcast today. Or I'm going to play 15 minutes with my kids today. I'm going to put everything else away and I'm just going to play with 15 minutes with my kids today. I am going to binge watch one of my favorite shows. I am going to clean my kitchen. Or I'm going to dejunk this. Or I'm going, just make it small. Take bite-sized pieces and take action on those bite-sized pieces when you say you're going to do it. All right, my loves, I hope that this was helpful for you this week. Don't forget, we've got the Art of Expansion coming up March 12th, 13th, and 14th in Provo, Utah. If you are a business owner or an entrepreneur who would like help finding their voice, understanding your message and how to reach your audience, this is for you. The Art of Expansion is for you. Come take a look. I do have some free tickets available. If you are willing, you'll have to pay for your lodge, your room, and your food, but and your travel as well. But I do have the tickets for you if you would like to come. I will be speaking there about building the unbreakable boundary and how that helps you heal trauma, how that also helps you create income and cash. Plus, there is going to be many other speakers talking about taking care of your body, making sure your voice is heard, and so many other topics. It's a great lineup of speakers. So without further ado, if you guys want a ticket, please message the show. I'd be happy to give you one as long as you come out and see us. And until next week, I'll see you on the other side, guys. Bye. Hey guys, thanks so much for hanging out with me today and listening in on this podcasting episode. Don't forget to tune in next week. It's gonna be awesome. See you soon. Bye.